Up to this point, it is clear how fear becomes an axis. What has not yet been seen is why the pattern continues even after you understand it. There is a recurring confusion between understanding and repositioning. Most people understand the mechanism but remain in the same internal position. Understanding does not change polarity, it only illuminates where you are. In the Hermetic field, this is decisive because laws do not respond to intellectual awareness, they respond to orientation. As long as you remain oriented against fear, the system will continue reacting to it. Opposition keeps the field active. Here is the point that requires precision. Fear does not dissolve when it is fought, nor when it is analyzed, nor when it is explained. It dissolves when it stops being the center of reference. This is not emotional acceptance in the common sense. It is not resignation. It is not passive tolerance. It is axis displacement. Most people try to change the content of the mind, but content is not the problem. The problem is the fixed point from which everything is interpreted. As long as fear occupies that point, it will continue organizing responses, even when absent. Observe how this appears in practice. You may face a feared situation and realize nothing serious happened. Still, the pattern returns next time. Why? Because the system did not learn from the event, it learned from the posture before it. The mind learns more from preparation than from outcome. If preparation was marked by tension, vigilance, and resistance, the system records, "This requires defense," and repeats. This is why positive experiences do not cure fear patterns. They do not alter the internal position. They only relieve charge temporarily. Hermetic tradition always separated experience from principle. Experience passes, principle remains. As long as the principle is resistance, repetition is inevitable. Here, a crucial distinction must be made. Not reacting is not the same as surrendering. Not reacting means not feeding the circuit. Surrender implies giving up direction. What keeps fear alive is not the sensation itself, but the automatic movement of opposition. This movement creates friction. Friction generates heat. Heat keeps the system activated. Where there is no friction, there is no fuel. But this requires something most avoid: the capacity to remain conscious without intervening. This is not an emotional skill, it is a structural one. As long as you try to change the internal state, you confirm its authority. As long as you try to eliminate it, you legitimize it. The mind interprets attempt as proof of relevance. This is the paradox that confuses. The more you try to overcome fear, the more you reinforce the belief that it must be overcome. And beliefs structure behavior. Hermetically speaking, this is polarity maintenance through effort. Effort sustains the field. Real change does not occur through direct effort, but through attention relocation without charge. When attention stops orbiting fear, the system loses reference. Without reference, there is no organization. Without organization, there is no sustained pattern. This does not happen all at once. It happens when fear stops being treated as something that demands action. Most cannot tolerate this idea because they confuse action with control. But control is not reaction. Control is applied understanding. As long as you react to fear as if it were an error signal, you remain bound to its logic. And this leads to a conclusion rarely faced without discomfort. Fear does not disappear when you face it, but when you stop organizing your life around it. As long as fear occupies the center of your attention, every movement will be only a variation of the same prison. What you have seen so far explains the pattern. It does not yet explain why you seem unable to leave it. Most people, After realizing that resistance strengthens fear, simply try to resist less. This adjustment fails, because the problem is not the intensity of resistance, but the assumption that creates it. There is a silent assumption operating in the mind, the idea that fear is something separate from you, something that must be defeated, controlled, or eliminated. This assumption is not harmless. It immediately establishes an internal division, and every internal division creates tension. The human mind was not designed to sustain continuous war against itself. When it does, it seeks stability, and it finds it by fixing patterns. Here enters a law that is rarely understood correctly. The mind always tends toward coherence, not happiness. Coherence means alignment between thought, emotion, and expectation. If you believe something is dangerous, your attention, your body, and your decisions begin organizing to confirm that belief. This process does not require awareness. It happens automatically. In Hermetic language, this is described as internal correspondence. The mental state creates a reference field. Everything that enters that field is interpreted through it. When you resist fear, you declare it important. You mark it as something that must be monitored, and whatever is monitored remains active. Think of an alarm system that is too sensitive. The more you check whether it is off, the more often you trigger it. Not because there is danger, but because constant attention keeps the system alert. This is exactly how fear becomes fixed. The mistake is not feeling fear. The mistake is treating it as a threat to your identity. When that happens, fear stops being a passing experience and becomes a signal, an internal marker that says, "This must be avoided." And the mind learns quickly. It begins to anticipate, to simulate scenarios, to create stories before any real event occurs. At this point, fear no longer responds to the present, it responds to expectation. This is one of the strongest psychological retention mechanisms. Anticipated fear always feels more urgent than real fear. You have lived this. The tension before an event is often greater than the event itself, but the relief never lasts. Why? Because the mind was trained not to pass through the experience, but to avoid it. Avoidance does not resolve. Avoidance trains the nervous system to react faster next time. Here arises another common confusion, mistaking control for suppression. Hermetic control does not mean preventing internal states from arising. It means understanding their mechanics. What you attempt to suppress does not disappear. It changes route. It manifests in the body, in behavior, in indirect decisions. Repressed fears become rigidity. They become irritability. They become excessive need for external control. And the more you try to keep everything under control, the more fragile you become internally. This is where many feel trapped. They realize that fighting makes it worse, but they do not know what else to do. And here is the part that requires intellectual honesty. There is no emotional exit before structural understanding. Hermetic tradition never promised immediate comfort. It promised clarity. Clarity reveals something uncomfortable. Fear persists not because you fail to fight it, but because you insist on treating it as an enemy. As long as that relationship remains unchanged, fear will continue returning, not as punishment, but as consequence. And this leads to an unavoidable realization. You cannot dissolve what you still believe must be defeated. As long as fear is treated as something to be fought, it will remain something to be faced. What has been explained so far shows why fear becomes fixed. It does not yet show how it begins governing you unnoticed. There is a point where fear stops being a reaction and becomes a system. At that point, it no longer depends on external events. It sustains itself. The human mind has a basic survival mechanism.
Whatever is repeatedly signaled as a threat becomes a central reference. This happens before conscious thought, before choice, before decision. When you resist an internal state, you send a silent message to the nervous system. This is dangerous. Stay alert. Repeated, this message creates an axis of orientation. Axes do not need justification to operate. They simply organize everything around them. In Hermetic language, this is active polarization. It is not the content of the fear that matters, but the fixed position you assume toward it. Once the polarity is fixed, every stimulus is interpreted through it. Ambiguity disappears. Nuance disappears. Everything begins to look like confirmation. This is the moment when people say, "See, I'm always like this. This always happens to me. I knew it would go wrong." This is not prediction, it is conditioning. The mind is not reading reality, it is filtering it. Fear strengthens when it becomes a criterion for decisions, criterion for evaluation, criterion for identity. Observe carefully. When you avoid something out of fear, you feel immediate relief. That relief is interpreted as proof that avoidance worked. But the system learns something else. Avoidance reduced tension. This learning is fatal to psychological freedom. Because now fear no longer needs to appear to control. The possibility of it is enough. Anticipation becomes sufficient. This is the stage where many believe they are being prudent, mature, or realistic. In truth, they are being conditioned. Hermetic tradition was always clear. Mental habit creates tracks, and tracks reduce options. This is not about courage or cowardice. It is about accumulated direction. Each time you resist, you reinforce the track. Each time you avoid, you deepen it. And the most uncomfortable part, the more intelligent the person, the more sophisticated the justifications become. The rational mind begins working on behalf of fear. It builds arguments, creates plausible explanations, transforms reaction into narrative. At this point, fear is no longer perceived as fear. It is called common sense, caution, realism. This is one of the most efficient mechanisms of internal imprisonment, when fear starts looking like virtue. Hermetically speaking, this is confusion of planes. An emotional state assumes the role of organizing principle. When that happens, there is no open confrontation, no visible struggle, only progressive limitation. Life quietly shrinks, choices become predictable, experiences repeat, and still it feels like protection. Here lies the central tension most avoid facing. Fear does not persist because it is strong, but because it is obeyed. It dictates rhythm, limits, priorities. Until this is seen clearly, any attempt to change will be superficial. Replacing thoughts does not work. Affirmations do not work. Forced confidence does not work. None of these change the axis. The law operating here is simple and impersonal. What organizes your attention organizes your experience. And this leads to a conclusion most resist accepting. You are not trapped by fear because it appears, but because it defines how you move. As long as fear remains your silent criterion, it will remain your invisible commander.
Up to this point, it is clear how fear becomes an axis. What has not yet been seen is why the pattern continues even after you understand it. There is a recurring confusion between understanding and repositioning. Most people understand the mechanism but remain in the same internal position. Understanding does not change polarity. It only illuminates where you are. In the Hermetic field, this is decisive because laws do not respond to intellectual awareness. They respond to orientation. As long as you remain oriented against fear, the system will continue reacting to it. Opposition keeps the field active. Here is the point that requires precision. Fear does not dissolve when it is fought, nor when it is analyzed, nor when it is explained. It dissolves when it stops being the center of reference. This is not emotional acceptance in the common sense. It is not resignation. It is not passive tolerance. It is axis displacement. Most people try to change the content of the mind, but content is not the problem. The problem is the fixed point from which everything is interpreted. As long as fear occupies that point, it will continue organizing responses, even when absent. Observe how this appears in practice. You may face a feared situation and realize nothing serious happened. Still, the pattern returns next time. Why? Because the system did not learn from the event, it learned from the posture before it. The mind learns more from preparation than from outcome. If preparation was marked by tension, vigilance, and resistance, the system records, "This requires defense," and repeats. This is why positive experiences do not cure fear patterns. They do not alter the internal position. They only relieve charge temporarily. Hermetic tradition always separated experience from principle. Experience passes, principle remains. As long as the principle is resistance, repetition is inevitable. Here, a crucial distinction must be made. Not reacting is not the same as surrendering. Not reacting means not feeding the circuit. Surrender implies giving up direction. What keeps fear alive is not the sensation itself, but the automatic movement of opposition. This movement creates friction. Friction generates heat. Heat keeps the system activated. Where there is no friction, there is no fuel. But this requires something most avoid: the capacity to remain conscious without intervening. This is not an emotional skill, it is a structural one. As long as you try to change the internal state, you confirm its authority. As long as you try to eliminate it, you legitimize it. The mind interprets attempt as proof of relevance. This is the paradox that confuses. The more you try to overcome fear, the more you reinforce the belief that it must be overcome. And beliefs structure behavior. Hermetically speaking, this is polarity maintenance through effort. Effort sustains the field. Real change does not occur through direct effort, but through attention relocation without charge. When attention stops orbiting fear, the system loses reference. Without reference, there is no organization. Without organization, there is no sustained pattern. This does not happen all at once. It happens when fear stops being treated as something that demands action. Most cannot tolerate this idea because they confuse action with control. But control is not reaction. Control is applied understanding. As long as you react to fear as if it were an error signal, you remain bound to its logic. And this leads to a conclusion rarely faced without discomfort. Fear does not disappear when you face it, but when you stop organizing your life around it. As long as fear occupies the center of your attention, every movement will be only a variation of the same prison.
What has been clarified so far removes the illusion of combat. What still needs to be seen is the inevitable consequence of not correcting internal position. Laws do not punish, they proceed. When fear remains the organizing center, life does not collapse immediately. It adjusts, and this adjustment is almost imperceptible at first. You become more cautious, avoid certain risks, reduce exposure. Everything seems reasonable, but the criterion has not changed. It has only become refined. Here, a silent shift occurs. Your life begins to be shaped not by what you understand, but by what you try not to feel. This is not dramatic, it is administrative. Routine adapts. opportunities decrease without confrontation. Decisions become predictable. Hermetically, this is direct consequence of the law of cause and effect applied to the mental plane. There is no judgment involved. The cause is orientation. The effect is resulting structure. As long as fear remains reference, the field of possibilities narrows, not because something external limits you, but because the internal system does not recognize alternatives as safe. And most importantly, this is not perceived as loss. It is perceived as choice. This is where many are mistaken. They believe they are exercising free will, when in reality they are merely obeying an old axis. At this stage, fear no longer needs to appear as intense sensation. It becomes a filter, a silent no before yes is even considered. This is the deepest consequence of continuous resistance. It creates identity. A person begins defining themselves as someone who is not like that, who prefers to avoid, who doesn't feel comfortable with this. These phrases sound neutral, but they are structural declarations. Identity is not what you say about yourself. It is the set of patterns you repeat without questioning. And repeated patterns become functional destiny. Hermetic tradition always warned, mental habit is not a psychological detail. It is an organizing principle of experience. When fear organizes, it limits without confronting. It restricts without attacking. It governs without being seen. There is no villain, no decisive event, only continuity. That is why many reach stagnation without knowing how they arrived. Nothing wrong happened, nothing serious occurred. The same logic was simply applied long enough. Here, understanding must become serious, not emotional, not hopeful, serious. Because the cost of keeping fear as reference is not constant suffering, it is a progressively smaller life. And this is not corrected with quick techniques, positive phrases, or forced courage. It is corrected only when one assumes responsibility for the internal orientation being maintained. Not moral responsibility, structural responsibility. As long as you treat fear as something to be fought or avoided, it will remain the silent parameter of your choices. This is not a threat, it is a description. And descriptions, when understood, demand positioning. If this clarity has value for you, remain with this work. Understanding does not produce immediate effects, but it accumulates, and when it accumulates, it reorganizes. What you do not correct through understanding will continue being corrected through consequence.
What remains now is no longer explanation. It is logical consequence. When internal orientation is not corrected, life does not teach lessons, it simply responds. Most expect that once the mechanism is understood, something will change automatically. That expectation is another form of avoidance. Understanding does not shift axis by itself, it only removes excuses. The law continues operating exactly the same after being recognized. It does not adapt to your awareness. It requires alignment. Here is the final point many avoid facing. There is no psychological neutrality. Either you organize life from fear, or fear loses function through lack of centrality. As long as fear is treated as something that must be resolved, it remains relevant. Relevance maintains structure. Structure maintains repetition. The common mistake is seeking an ideal internal state, absence of fear, constant security, emotional control. This ideal does not exist in real mental functioning. Hermetic tradition never promised perfect states. It described laws of movement. Fear does not need to disappear to lose power. It needs to stop being obeyed. Obedience is not feeling, it is organizing decisions around it. When fear leaves the center,
it becomes peripheral, and what is peripheral does not govern. This does not require emotional bravery, it requires sobriety. Sobriety is the capacity to not automatically react to the internal impulse of opposition, not fight, not justify, not dramatize. The mind learns through silent repetition. Where there is no charged response, there is no reinforcement. This is not passivity, it is precision. Most never reach this point because they confuse clarity with comfort. But clarity often removes comfort. It reveals something simple and uncomfortable. Many lived limitations are not imposed, they are maintained. Maintained by habit, maintained by interpretation, maintained by an incorrect relationship with one's own internal experience. From here, there is nothing left to fight. Not fear, not pattern, not emotion. There is only positioning. As long as you insist on treating fear as a problem to be resolved, your life will continue organized around it. When you stop granting it that role, the structure begins to lose coherence, not dramatically, functionally. Decisions stop passing through avoidance filters. Possibilities stop being discarded in advance. Experience begins reorganizing without direct effort. This is not a promise, it is a side effect of corrected orientation. The law does not require belief, it requires consistency. And consistency is not proven in intense moments, but in the absence of automatic reaction. Here, the explanation ends. What happens from here does not depend on new ideas, but on ceasing one specific error. You do not need to eliminate fear, you only need to stop using it as a compass. That is the difference between someone who understands the law and someone who continues being moved by it without knowing. As long as fear is consulted before action, it will continue deciding for you.